Hello, Lord. It's when I feel like 8 o'clock, and we are live for the first time since after Christmas. I had lots of family stuff to do the last couple days. I wasn't able to go, but we are back now, and we got hockey tonight. Kinda, sorta. If everybody has some players left, I guess we're gonna have at her tonight. Not much happened over the week, really. All it basically was them telling you who's not going to play, who's in out of out of COVID, who's out back, all that kind of stuff like that. Oh, I missed something there. I'm just quickly looking at if any new stuff has come up. Trevor Zegras placed on COVID protocol. Yeah, it's all that kind of stuff. Michael Scarboza placed on waivers. I would pick him up if I were somebody out there. He didn't play that bad for Washington. First world problems, right? I'm tired of eating this food choice that I have so abundantly that I can possibly eat it anymore. Yeah, we're ready, buddy. Hockey's back. Hockey's back. The United States game is canceled. I was going to watch that as I talked to you, but they had a couple people on COVID, so they shut it down. The funny thing is, Switzerland wins. How does that work? Switzerland gets the win because some people had COVID. So that's why they said there's, I guess they just have that tight of a timeline that we don't have time for your COVID sickness people. You're going to lose. Yeah, it is going to be cool. Wow, all of you, for some reason, I don't know how you missed it, but there was some big news. Big news. Did you see it? Big news. Big news. Go check it out on for my videos. Big NHL news. Huge. Got to check it out. Nobody seemed to watch it. It's in my shorts. Go check out shorts. Pearlo. I don't know how you even do that. So that might be part of the problem. But I could tell you, but then I really want you to watch the video. Anyways, I'll tell you if you promise to watch the video. It's super short. It's a short. That's why it's called shorts. Let's see, videos. Yeah, 2 people have watched it so far. Huge news, and 2 people watched it. Yeah, forfeited for the U.S. I don't really get that, but I guess they got to keep the ball rolling. So if you have COVID and too many players, and I don't even know what that is. Apparently, they only had two people. So they lose the game, which is actually really good for me because I had Switzerland plus 3.5. And it counted. It counted, which is crazy. If you were picking them, it counted. Hey, Oilers, man, how you doing? Big news on your way out. Check out my shorts on my channel. Big news there for NHL news. Big NHL news. Huge. They brought back the taxi squads, which was a smart move. Good for those guys. Those guys, older age, because they're going to take most of the teams are going to take their older AHL guys because they don't want their younger players not playing and progressing and all that kind of stuff like that. So some older guys that have been stewing around, like a good one will be who I just said was put on waivers. I imagine he'll get picked up. Scarboza. I imagine he'll get picked up and he'll get to stay in. He'll get to travel on the NHL planes and stay in the NHL hotels. all that kind of stuff like that. Although I do believe that if you're on the taxi squad, you still get your AHL money. But at least you're cozy. Yeah, we'll see how long it goes for. There's a lot of teams with a lot of players out still. So they're still canceled a few teams all the way up until after New Year's. I think Toronto Maple Leafs. Who else was there? Colorado Avalanche, I believe, if I remember correctly. Let me see. Who was it? New York Islanders had 4 more and activate Barzal. I don't know if that means they're going to be. The Panthers have Huberdeau and 3 others to COVID protocol, which Carter Verhaeghe, Ryan Lomberg, Sam Bennett. I mean, you can't put a roster together with that. That makes 12 players. They're going to have to cancel those games. You can't play a game with 12 players. I wanted to see, I can't remember. They said there was teams that weren't going to play until it was way back now. I can't remember who they were. Anyways, I think it was the Toronto Maple Leafs. It was Canadian teams, maybe the Calgary Flames. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they use them. I mean, it couldn't hurt to have a guy there that can jump in like that. But, I mean, he's missed a lot of time. And really, your future is there. Swayman and, you know, he's not the future of that team. I'm sure he's going to get a lot of chance to see if he can get the ball rolling like he used to a certain degree. But it'll bring up a lot of competition. But he said himself that he will stay a Boston Bruin. He doesn't care if it's a third goaltender or what have you. So if he's a goalie coach or whatever they want to use him as, he'll do it for less money. He'll do it for like league minimum. He's not going anywhere else. He's a Boston Bruin, and that's the way it's going to be. So that's for sure. That seems pretty for sure that he won't be anything but a Boston Bruin. Oh shoot! I've been trying to do some videos about some trades and stuff like that, but it's pretty difficult to do in these COVID times. That's really the biggest. As of right now, Rask will back up Linus Ullmark. So they're going to put Swayman down in the minors? It's unfortunate for Swayman. He'll rip it up down there, I imagine. He'll tear that apart down there. Oh, sorry about that, Oilers, man. You asked me, have I seen the World Juniors? Yes, I have seen the World Juniors. I've been doing very well at the World Juniors. That's what we can talk about is, I'll tell you, okay. This was a big thing that happened in the draft. What was it, last year or the year before? When Minnesota traded up to get Jesper Wallstedt, okay? And they traded with Edmonton, but it's not just them. A whole bunch of teams totally didn't take him. This year, he's got a 1.82 and a .923. What's going on here? This year he's got 1.82 goals against average and a .923 save percentage in Sweden, Swedish Elite League. In the World Junior Champions, is a 1.50 and a .962. Against Slovakia, Sweden got their bloody butts kicked, honestly. Sweden got their bloody butts kicked, and that kid saved, I don't know, 46 shots or something like that. So this kid, dropped. He was supposed to be a top 10 goaltender in that draft. What was that? 2000? Was that last year's draft? Or was that the year before that? Oh yeah, I believe it was last year's draft, right? No, it wasn't, because they took Holloway. Or was it? Yeah, it was 2021, right? Oh, come on. Yeah, 20th overall by Jesper Wallstedt. Edmonton traded down and got Bourgault. Bourgault does look like he's pretty good. But, I mean, he was passed up by St. Louis. The Rangers, I get it. They didn't need a goaltender. Detroit, that's going to be interesting. They took Casa, and he's playing with Edmonton right now. And he doesn't look like he's as good as Wallstedt. Now, what I heard was that the problem with Wallstedt was his attitude. I don't know what that means, but I do know he's 18 freaking years old. Like, he was supposed to be a top 10 pick. And he falls down to 20 because of attitude. Do you want to talk about some of the greatest goaltenders that had like really crappy attitudes, like Patrick Waugh, Dominic Hasek? Yeah, what is it with Askarov and not being able to have good World Junior Championships? The only place he can't stop pucks is the World Junior Championships, apparently. 2019 was night. Askarov can't stop pucks at the Junior Championships for some reason. I don't get it. Everywhere else, KHL, VHL, wherever he goes, no problem. As soon as it's a world, it must be something in his head or something. I don't know. So they're going to have a three-tier I don't like doing that. Yeah, I know, but I mean, he's looked really not good. But yeah, that team can't play defense worth a darn. That Russian team. Michka's looking good though. Michka's looking really good. And Bedard, they still got him playing on the fourth line. Uh, for Edmonton, Owen Power is the guy that looks unbelievable. I just wonder how much that's going to translate into the NHL because he's got such a huge advantage to be so big compared to everybody else there. He's not very physical, but he has a size like players know that they're not going to be able to take him out physically in junior. There's not too many junior players that are going to take Owen Power out. But when he gets to the NHL, they're going to. And that's going to be the test to see how he can play that style because he doesn't really have that physical style. He doesn't have the greatest shot in the world. He doesn't have a great shot. So it's going to be interesting what he's going to look like when he's in the NHL. Maybe you're right, but the other goaltenders have looked better than Askarov. So I bet you other goaltenders have looked better than Askarov in Russia, on the Russian team, on the actual Russian team. So what do you say about that? I mean, they're not as good as Knight, and they're not as good as Wallstedt. Sweden's team is good. Sweden's team is pretty sick. They got the guy who looks like the next Slavin. They have the guy that looks like the next Slavin there in that Detroit picked up. Edvinson. Man, that guy looks good. Of course, they have the goalie, Wallstedt. They got Holtz. Who else do they have? I don't know why this is so hidden this year. Like, you got to go through announces roster for World Junior Championships. Are you actually going to show it? They got William Eklund, obviously San Jose Sharks, prospect Edvinson, Oscar Olesen, Colorado Avalanche pick. That guy looks pretty solid on D. And Edvinson too. Brad Lambert, Joaquin Kemmel, pretty solid roster for sure. Yeah, it's a pretty solid team. I thought the Russians were going to look better, but anyways, obviously people are not too interested. I can't wait till U.S. start embracing the World Junior Championships. It's not popular in the U.S. at all yet, and when it is, like people are going to love that tournament. If you, yeah, yeah, all the other teams are just like the Slovaks are playing a solid two-way game, but they don't have they can't score to save their life. So Finland's got a pretty strong team too. Finland's has a possibility outside shot, but yeah, Sweden Sweden and Canada look like the most solid teams for sure in that tournament. All right, games tonight, and yeah, okay. The Canadiens and Tampa Bay Lightning. Everything is changing so much so fast on who. Point is back in for Tampa Bay now. And the Canadiens are going to have Martin Bow in net. Molten Bowl is going to be in net for Montreal. So there's that. I love the fact that he's in because we can say Molten Bowl for the next 2 days. But for Montreal, it's not good. Tanev is out with an ACL. Actually, there's been a lot of players taken off of Seattle because of COVID and injury. Tanev is a big piece gone from Seattle, that's for sure. But Tampa Bay, I forgot, that's what I was going to say. Tampa Bay is putting in Maxime Legacy, who didn't do bad last time he had a chance, and I believe that was last year, but he hasn't put up great numbers in the AHL. It's going to be the biggest weakness, I think, for Tampa Bay tonight. Let me see what the lineup looks like. I've looked at it several times if it's changed. I know Montreal is without a few players themselves. Joanne Suzuki Gallagher. Oh, Raphael Pinard Harvey with Paling and Caulfield. Who the heck is that? A little guy that put up 14 points in 24 games in the AHL. Oh yeah, you got to take Tampa here with Ryan Paling and Cole Caulfield. That's a small line, except for Paling. I don't know what he's going to do with that line. And then Cedric Paquette with Michael Pezzetta and Lucas Vedimo, who has never been able to put it together. And then Belzile with Evans and Yolonen. Oh my gosh. That lineup is ugly. Ugly. Romanoff and Savard are the top two with Brett and Kulak and Clegg. Even though Tampa's playing their third string goaltender, I'm pretty sure, with Point back in the lineup. But, you know, it's Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay will go. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Tampa Bay goes into this game like they often do, just thinking they already won it. You know, they were partying all Christmas, and I wouldn't doubt it. But they got Point back with Killorn and Joseph, Palat with Stamkos, and that Tyler Radish kid has finally looked like has put it together and can be a good NHLer. And then Maroon, Colton, Ross Colton, and Corey Perry's a solid third line. Sean Day is going to play. Do you guys know Sean Day? He had exceptional status in junior. I believe he got drafted in the first round by the New York Rangers and just decided to waste his life away a bit. I don't know what he was doing, but he's worked. He went to the ECHL. Then last year signed an AHL contract, and it looks like he's found a way to play in the NHL tonight. So Sean Day, 6'3", 240 pounds. I'd say the guy's carrying a few extra pounds still. You're not supposed to be 240 pounds. Holy crap. Anyways, I don't think he'll see much ice time, and they won't need to have him see much ice time tonight. I think Tampa Bay will probably have to pull this through. It would be like, even with your backup goaltender, with that Montreal lineup, there's no frick. It would be a disgrace if you lost that game. Seriously, absolute disgrace. You can't lose that game. The only thing you got to do, I can't stand Tampa Bay, and you guys know it, because of how many times you see them, and the only thing they got to do is outwork the opposition. As long as they outwork the opposition, they're going to win that game, and they get outworked. Happens all the time with the Lightning. It drives me crazy. Why? He's a defenseman. Day is a defenseman. He was looking like he was supposed to be a Norris level defenseman, and it sounds like he had commitment issues. He just started believing the hype. I don't know. I would love to see a player like that on a regular basis, like as a journalist or whatever. But it's amazing you don't hear anybody say what the problem is in the NHL. You ever notice that? There's obviously a problem. It could be anxiety issues. It could be all kinds of stuff. But there's obviously a problem, and seldom, unless the player is like way out of whack, like a couple players have been in the NHL, where it gets like you can't even hide it. You don't hear anything about it. But there had to be a reason why Day fell down that badly. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah, he was a defenseman. He was supposed to be like, just a top two defenseman, exceptional status at a junior. When he got into junior, I mean, let's look at his numbers when he was young in junior were like crazy. Oh, first of all, he's from Belgium. I didn't know that. He probably didn't grow up in Belgium. But when he was with Mississauga Steelheads, okay. When he was 16, he played 60 games in junior. Yeah, he only got 16 points. And then 2014-15, he was 17. He got 36 points in 61 games. His plus-minus wasn't good, but I remember those teams for the Steelheads. They weren't that great. In midget, then he went for the Windsor Spitfires. It's weird. He never really put up, I thought he put up crazy points, but he never did. He never really did. Surprisingly, he got that exceptional status. AAA Bantam, he had 19 points in 15 games. Interesting. Anyways, everybody thought he was going to be fantastic, and they might have overestimated him or something. I don't know. Russia beat Switzerland, yeah. Yeah, but they only beat them 4-2. Switzerland is not that great of a team. But they thought he was going to be a big, solid defenseman that could play top 2 minutes. And he just totally fell off the map. Like, every year, he just never kept panning out over and over and over again. Anyways, he's going to get his chance tonight. But that Tampa Bay roster should easily beat Montreal's roster. Unless that Legacy has played in the NHL. It's not his first game. I believe he's played a couple times. If I remember correctly, he played for Pittsburgh for a bit. Yeah. He had 1 game in Pittsburgh. He had 16 games for Vegas in 2007. So he's played 18 NHL games so far. And he's going to play his 19th tonight, apparently. The only thing is that with the Syracuse Crunch in the AHL, his numbers are really bad. Now, I'm not sure how good that team is or whatever, but those are pretty god-awful looking numbers there. So that would be the biggest thing. But the thing is, Montreal has so few players on their roster that can shoot now that it may not matter. And they also got Molten Bull in that, who's not that great of a goaltender himself. No, he's been terrible for Vegas. It's sort of the elephant in the room there now. Lehner has not only been not great, he's been terrible. Yeah, no, he hasn't been good at all. Brossoit is going to be playing tonight. I think he's in COVID protocol now, but Lehner has been absolutely terrible. Yeah, he could be. They said that procedure that they did on him, he's going to be back. They said he's going to be back sooner than you think. And it looks like they're right. I don't know what they're going to do to make room for him, but I'm sure they'll figure out a way. They're going to have to make some room for him salary cap-wise. I'm going to bet that they're going to find a home for Dodonov or Smith. More than likely Dodonov. I don't think they want to break up that line, second line, center line. Oh yeah, Fleury is doing better in Chicago. I think it was a really tough decision for them to make that decision because, you never know when Fleury's going to retire. I think that was the main problem with that. Is you just never know when he's going to retire. So their problem was they got about a 3-year window. And if Fleury decided to retire in that 3-year window, they would be in trouble. But I don't know. Plus, he's getting up there. Everybody has sold Fleury short, and he's made him look like a fool every time. Pittsburgh took Murray over Fleury. Now, partly that was Murray's doing. Murray should have been a lot better than he was. But Fleury goes over and brings Vegas to the finals. Vegas does what they do. He goes to Chicago now. Now, they're not going to make the playoffs, but that's to no fault of Fleury's. He's been incredible there. Now, he's going to go somewhere, and I wouldn't doubt that he brings a cup to wherever he goes. And he's going to make Vegas look stupid, and I hope he does. Because as far as I'm concerned, they basically begged him to come over from Pittsburgh because he didn't have to go. He could have said, no, I'm not going. Too bad. I'm not going. I'm staying here. I don't want to leave Pittsburgh. My family loves it here. He had a no movement clause. He didn't have to go. So you think that possibly Vegas said, hey, you know what? You can be here you can extend your career here and all that kind of stuff like that. And then they go get a guy like Lehner and then put him basically in a position where, like, okay, where do I stand? And they tell him where he stands, and because they trade him off. So I just don't think that's a very healthy thing to do to your players in an organization. Like if I'm a young player for the Vegas Golden Knights, and when it comes to contract time, I'm going to be like, do I want to be here long term? Like, everybody's going to want no movement clauses for Vegas now. They're not going to be able to get away with signing too many people without an NMV. After they saw what they did with Fleury, people are going to be like, I want a no movement clause. I saw what you did with Fleury. Why would I'm not going to let you just trust you. Obviously, they didn't stand by what they said with Fleury. And I'm positive. I am so positive. I don't have any actual proof, but I'm pretty positive that they would have told Fleury, you know what, like you can extend your career here, all that stuff like that. We'll make you a number one. I don't know. It didn't smell right, and I don't think it smells right with the people in the room there either. And sometimes I think you have to make decisions based on the future of your organization. And dropping Fleury off to Chicago for basically nothing, and then rolling the dice with Lehner, if that don't work out, it could really affect them in the long term. And I think it may. I think it may. Not to mention the pressure you're now putting on Lehner, because it's always going to be. If Lehner's doing poorly, you could have had Fleury. You could have had Fleury. You could have had Fleury. If they lose in the playoffs this year, if the Golden Knights lose in the playoffs this year, it's going to be, you could have had Fleury. Especially, imagine if it's Lehner's fault. Imagine if it's Lehner's fault that, like, not really fault, but I mean, let's say he had a bad, like he keeps on playing bad like this. If he keeps on playing bad like he is right now in the playoffs, oh my gosh, that's going to be brutal. It's not just going to be brutal for the fans. It's going to be brutal in the room because they're all going to know we could have had Lehner. We could have had Fleury. And they know what they did to Fleury, who's one of the nicest guys in the NHL, if not the nicest. Gracious, awesome human being, and they just threw him aside like nothing. So, doesn't look good. And yeah, I'm a fan of Vegas, but I don't like what they did there at all. And I hope he does. I would love it if he went to my Edmonton Oilers, but I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe for 1 year. Oh, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'll tell you that right now. I would do it in a freaking heartbeat. If they would retain some money, I would give up a first right now for Fleury. If I was Edmonton, they retain some money, we send something back. Yamamoto in a first. With that defense, they got to do something. You're not going to fix the defense now. So you might as well get a guy that can basically make your defense look decent. And Fleury does that. They just might be able to win a cup if they had Fleury in there. Also, if I was the Washington Capitals. Also, if I was a Washington, would you do it? Would you, if you were the Oilers, would you give up a first in Yamamoto for Fleury? If I were the Washington Capitals, I would do something similar to that. I would give Samsonov and a first for Fleury. They don't have a chance, man. I don't believe Washington has a chance with that roster, without Fleury, with Samsonov in there. I don't think so. They got Fleury in there, almost any team has a chance. And I know I picked Chicago to almost make the playoffs and all that stuff like that. And I still think that they might have been able to do it if they didn't go through all that nonsense that they went through at the beginning of the season. They got ever since that new coach took over, they got a record that would have been putting them close to that. So I think if I'm Washington, I'm on the phone. They got a short window of opportunity here. They're not getting any younger. They got like maybe 2 years if you're lucky to even have a chance. They're big, they're solid, they're certainly got a playoff built team. You got a great coach there for a short window. I'm all in for Fleury, man. Fleury can practically win a couple of years. When Vegas went to the finals, wasn't for Fleury. If you would exchange Fleury for 90% of the goaltenders in the league, they don't make it. It's just like if you were to exchange Price for maybe even over 90% of the goaltenders in the league, Montreal never would have made the finals that year. Almost the same. Maybe you can make a case even more so for what Price did, but I don't believe Vegas made the finals if you put Holtby in there. I don't think Vegas makes the finals if you put Markstrom in there, Jari, Bobrovsky, maybe Rask, maybe. I don't know. I like not with Grubauer. I mean, most of the goaltenders in the league never would have been able to get Montreal to the finals that year, and same as Fleury when Vegas went. So if I'm Montreal, yeah, if I'm Washington, I am all over that. All over that. I would even consider it if I was Minnesota, honestly, because I don't think Talbot's going to get you to the promised land. And I don't think their team is really built to make it to the promised land. But a guy like Fleury can take a team like that there. I would consider it if I was Minnesota. It's a win now move, but they're kind of in a win now situation too, because their roster is going to get weaker for the next couple of years, probably, as they aren't going to have the cap space to sign players and all that stuff like that. So if I'm Minnesota, I'm on the phone. At least he doesn't have to move as far. The thing is Fleury does have the choice to where he wants to go. Question is, would Pittsburgh still be in on this? Because Jari has played exceptionally well. I personally think they will. I even think they would trade Jari back because they got a 2-3 year window in Pittsburgh, and finally, they're in rebuild mode. So bringing Fleury back, do you know how driven he would be to win a cup if he went back to Pittsburgh again? It would be amazing. It would just the storyline alone would be incredible to see Fleury go back to Pittsburgh. I hope it happens. I seriously hope it happens. Besides that, I think Toronto Maple Leafs would keep going with Campbell. Carolina is fine with Anderson. Maybe Dallas does something crazy like that, because their best goaltender right now is just a kid in Ottinger. Maybe I could like Dallas is the type of team that's going to go for it right now. So they've shown that over and over and over again. They got an old team. Their window of opportunity is not that big. I don't know what they would give up, but I could see it. I could see it. I wouldn't give up Ottinger, but And again, he has to agree to that. So if it comes right down to it, basically, if Pittsburgh wants him, he's going. He's going there and nowhere else. He's going there and nowhere else for sure. I'm positive of that. I don't think it matters to him that the Penguins took the kid over him. I'm sure when they talked to him, I mean, it wasn't an easy move for Pittsburgh. The they couldn't do the cap space. They simply couldn't do it. I think if they could have worked around the cap, they would have kept Fleury in Pittsburgh. I really do. And they actually, if you look at the team, there was probably ways to get rid of a player and work around that cap. Trade Murray instead. As it stands, it probably would have been the best move looking back. Hindsight. But do you know Murray's going to crap the bed right after he signs his contract? Do you know that Murray, who pretty much won a cup with them already and was looking like an absolute stud number one, was just going to fall off the map? Like, how are you supposed to know that? The only way you could have ever known that, and I don't know, I'm not in the room, is if you saw this arrogant side of him or a really immature side. But even at that, you chalk that up to youth and he'll work his way out of it and everything will be fine. He's going to take less money. He's already shown he can play in the playoffs. He's huge. He's got incredible athletic ability. And we can keep another player instead of trading it off and keeping Fleury, who was getting on the 35-year-old area, somewhere around there. And even though you might think he's going to be able to play as well as he is all the way out to the end, when it came right down to it, just came down to the cap space. But if you look back on it now, they probably could have got a crap load for Murray at the time. Kept Fleury, got a few more prospects, and they probably would have been better off. But it was really hard to make that prediction. I didn't make that prediction. I understood it when it happened. And I think Fleury understood it when it happened too. I don't think he really had all that much animosity towards Pittsburgh for what they did. I wouldn't doubt that they were like very transparent with him all the way through. But what Vegas did, that smells worse. That smells worse. Because they went out and got Lehner while he was still there. And I'm pretty sure they didn't have a conversation with them that, oh, by the way, we're going to pick up a 27-year-old number one goaltender and pay him number one goaltender money while you're here. I mean, that was ugly. That was ugly the way they botched that up, I think. Wow, talked a whole crap load about that Vegas situation in Fleury. But those are the teams. I don't know. I think he will waive out of Chicago. I think he'll waive his no trade out of Chicago. I do, because there's no cup there. He's young. There's no way that team's going to make the playoffs. I doubt it very much anyways. Very unlikely. His family isn't in Chicago right now. So all things being equal, if Pittsburgh decides we're going to keep Jari and we're not going to go the old guy route here because, Jari's going to be our long-term goaltender, then I guess he'll start looking at teams like Edmonton, Washington that I mentioned, and stuff like that. But if I'm Pittsburgh, I'm all over it. So you get to keep Jari. Like, so what? I mean, they have nothing in their farm system hardly at all right now. They got to build up that farm system. You can always find a goaltender that can play while you're doing that. Look what Stevie Yzerman did. Guys like Grice and Bernier and stuff like that. Go get Nedeljkovic, give him a shot, see how he works out. You know, he's not blowing his wad to try to grab a goaltender or worrying about whether he keeps a number one or anything like that. Like, if it was, I believe if Stevie Yzerman was in on that decision, he would definitely, where Pittsburgh is right now, he'd take Fleury all day long. And then worry about the rebuild when the rebuild happens. But we'll see what Hextall and that group does. I got a fair amount of faith in Hextall because he did a pretty good job with that Philadelphia Flyers team, and I thought they were wrong to fire him when they did. So I'm really interested to see what Hextall's going to do with that team in the next 2 years or at the trade deadline and everything. Pittsburgh I'm pretty sure they're going for it this year. I don't think this is the year they start selling off assets. I don't think so. They got Malkin back. They're in a playoff position. You know, I don't think they're going to trade off all their assets either, but Konechny. I just looked at this. Who did they draft under Hextall? They drafted Konechny. Flyers draft under Hextall. Ron Hextall's draft history. Sanheim. Kubel. Oscar Lindblom. Provorov, Konechny. Carter Hart. Wade Wilson. This bad one was Nolan Patrick. I didn't like that pickup. Morgan Frost and Ratcliffe that year. All NHLers. They got a lot of NHLers in that team. I mean, could they have chosen a better pick in those spots? Yeah, possibly. But when you're picking late in the first round there, if you're picking guys like Konechny, you're doing well. Provorov was a good pick. Was he the best guy at that pick? Maybe not. Werenski, you could say. Frost, we'll see what he is. He looks like he's going to be a borderline NHLer. But Patrick was bad. But most people would have picked Patrick there. Like, all the scouts had Patrick there. I didn't understand why. I didn't have Patrick there. I didn't have Hischier either. I had Makar number 1. I had Makar as a number 1 pick that year. Then Hischier, and then I did have Patrick. So I had him in the top 3. He looked like he was going to be a stall type guy. But the thing with me is that I would love to know the attitude of these players as they go in. I heard whispers of him having some attitude problems. And for me, if I'm picking up in the top 5 and a guy's got an attitude problem, I'm not going to pick him. Because I want leaders first in the top 5. Yeah, I don't know if he's a bust, but he's not the top number 1 guy. I didn't like the pick. I liked Makar all day in that draft. For sure. But, I mean, as a general manager as well, I mean, they're not the ones that are picking all of these guys. You have a scouting staff. They give you the information. You go by their information. What I liked was his philosophy of how he was building that team. He didn't want to be that great, right? Like, he knew that Philadelphia was not a cup contender. And he was going to keep on drafting, picking up as many picks as he possibly could until Giroux and those guys could be bought out or traded. And then they could get like maybe 2 years of top 10 picks. And then he was going to start adding after that. That's what it looked like he was doing to me. He didn't have to rush Carter Hart because he knew Carter Hart, A, was going to make him too good if he panned out. B, it's a very good possibility that on a young player like that has happened to him what happened to him last year and he can't rebound. Wasn't likely with Carter Hart, but why risk it? It does happen. We've seen it over and over again. So, I mean, we've seen it happen before. The young players come in and then you never hear about them after that because they were brought up too quick. So there wasn't any reason to bring them fast, to play them quickly. And then when they took Chuck Fletcher, I was really suspicious. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, so basically you're abandoning the philosophy of Hextall altogether. And now you're in win now mode and you haven't really built up a prospect pool, a strong base. Like, I didn't like it. I don't like it now. I don't think it's going to work. It looks like Chuck Fletcher's grasping at straws. And that's never a good thing. So it looks like they're going to be like he was in Minnesota. They're going to be just barely make the playoffs or a bubble team out, possibly trade your first all the time to try to make the playoffs. And, and then even if you keep it, you pick in the middle of the rounds and you hope you hit pay dirt and get a really good prospect in that spot. It just never seems to work out. It didn't work for Minnesota. And, it's not likely to work here. Yeah, they do have the most prospects that are in the juniors. That doesn't necessarily mean they have the best prospect pool, though. Because a lot of those teams take players in, like, especially the European players, I find sometimes, like, they'll take a player that still stayed over in Europe over one that's in college a lot. And the college player is a better player. But that being said, I think Carolina and Detroit both have a pretty solid pool. The funny thing about Detroit's pool is the funny thing about Detroit's pool is that they don't have a lot of offense. I love Edvinson. Nybach, maybe, but they don't have a lot of offensive players. Whereas Carolina's pool, they got quite a bit of offense there. But teams like Dvorak, that costs too much for Dvorak, first and a second for sure. But Dvorak still got upside, but I think you're probably, it's really, you know what, it's really hard to tell. Dvorak has happened to do so much in Montreal. I think he's just doing way too much. He looked better than he was he looked better in Arizona. It looks like he's trying to do way too much in Montreal. He's better than that. But a first and a second, no, I think that's a bit much. Carolina, first and a third. I mean, at least with Kotkaniemi, he's got upside. He could still be a second liner somewhere down the road. But Dvorak is probably a third line center forever. So yeah, for sure they paid too much for him. Montreal paid too much for him. And they didn't even need to do it because, and now this is where it really got bad. If you lose Kotkaniemi like that, if you're going to lose Kotkaniemi like that, you're not going to make, like they should have known they weren't going to make the playoffs. That's the big thing. They should have known they weren't going to make the playoffs this year. So there was no reason to give up your first and second for a guy like Dvorak. They should have kept the pick. That was the bad part about that. But that's hindsight too, because at the time, I didn't know that Price wasn't going to play. I mean, it was just it was just a bad move. Like, why? Just to save face that you lost Kotkaniemi, you went and give a first and a second to get Dvorak? Like, Kotkaniemi saw the writing on the wall there in Montreal. I think he got offended because they didn't play him. He probably had people, giving him advice that Montreal is not very good at developing players, and they would be right. And so he decided to go to a place where it looks like they are very good at developing players. I'm not sure that move cost him his job. I think they knew Bergevin was gone before they ever went into the playoffs. I think they knew that this was a one-ditch effort, and no matter what, that Bergevin was gone after that. They had their eyes on Gorton long before that. I believe they were looking at Gorton before that. It didn't matter. Even Bergevin knew. It seemed like Bergevin knew that he had one chance to make it to the finals. Maybe if they win the cup. Hey, Jason Cowan, how you doing? Thanks for coming in. Woo! But I don't think it was necessarily that move that cost him his job. Alone. Might have been part of it, but I think it had more to do with he was already on the edge of losing his job anyways, because their drafting record was absolutely absurd up until last year. Losing Kotkaniemi didn't help out, but the fact that Kotkaniemi really was misused was more to do with it than the fact that they lost him. They just never, after Pacioretty, they never drafted and developed anybody. Look at Caulfield now. Caulfield looks like a shadow of what he's supposed to be right now. So, Jason Cowan, what's your favorite team, buddy? Thanks for coming in. Tell us all about it. We'll talk about whatever team you want, whatever you want to talk about. Let us know. We haven't even talked about the rest of the games tonight. We've been talking about the Kotkaniemi deal with Montreal doing what they did. Pittsburgh, it really was talking a lot about Pittsburgh and what they're going to do I seriously think they're going to give her one more shot this year. And then I don't know after that. Oh, NHL postpones what? Detroit Red Wings at New York Islanders game tomorrow has been postponed. Oh, how come my thing doesn't come up? There we go. Well, the problem is Caulfield is too small yet. I don't know if you remember, Lauren. When people were talking about Caulfield, I thought he was going to be okay. He was getting to the point, the play. Like my first question when he came in is he going to be able to get to those spots that he does in junior in the NHL? And he was getting to them. But the thing is, can you keep on doing it? To me, he still needs to grow physically yet. And when they sent him down to the AHL, how many times have they freaking did this in Montreal? They bring up a player too early. They keep him too long. They did it to Kokaniemi. They sent him to the AHL after. Now he feels like crap because now he feels like he failed, right? If you just leave him in the AHL, let him grow into his body and become better and better and better and stronger, then bring him up when you feel that he's going to be able to be at his best to succeed up here, the more likely that they're going to succeed. But they do it all the time. They get a guy, they play him when he hasn't really physically matured well enough yet, and then send him down to the AHL. And they try to tell him, oh, it's okay, it happens. We just want you to gain your confidence and stuff like that. But that's not the way you gain a guy's confidence. Oh, there's a lot of good players that come out of the USHL, though, man. I just think Caulfield was totally misused by Montreal, just like Kokaniemi. You watch now, you got Gordon there. It's not going to be that way. I don't think so, anyways. Although you can make a case maybe that both Kako and Lafreniere are suffering the same thing. But both of those guys are still holding their own. Caulfield isn't really even holding his own anymore. And they got a really bad team anyways. So it's not a great environment to be coming up in now. But I don't think they should have played him early. I think they should have just kept him in the AHL for a full year, or at least, usually you don't even need to go that far. Just work on his conditioning and strength training. Kako came from Finland. Kako came from Finland. But anyways, under Gordon, I don't think you're going to see this as much. I believe he did play in the Liga. I think he played in both. New York Rangers. Where are the New York Rangers? New York Rangers got tons of cap space too, by the way. Watch out. They decide that they're ready. The kid's got 20, 10, like people are saying he's a bust. 10 points in 26 games as a 20-year-old, you're doing all right. It's not too bad at all. He played one season in the Liga. 38 points in 45 games with 22 goals. So he played both. Liga Junior, and he played one season in Finland in the Liga. And he got a crap load of points. And I still think he's going to be a really good forward. I mean, not everybody in the top 10, in fact, most players in the top 10 are not going to be point of gamers. They're just not. He looked to me like a lot like Palat. Yeah, he's doing exactly what's expected of a guy his age. You're getting 10 points in 26 games as a 20-year-old in the NHL. You're going to be a really good player. And, I mean, he doesn't hurt the team. He's growing every year. He's not bad. Not bad at all. Right now, I would say he's probably on a better development curve than Lafreniere. But Lafreniere isn't doing all that bad either. They're just growing as players. I'd say OHL first, or OHL and WHL are about the same. Different types of players from OHL and WHL. Depends on what you want. OHL, yeah, you get more skilled players in the OHL. Western Hockey League, that's also just a product of the philosophy of the East and the philosophy of the West. The West is like a farm in town, tough guy, type players and stuff like that. OHL also has a bigger population pool to draw from, so they get better players because of that too. Western Canada's our population pool is pretty slim. BC is really the biggest of the bunch of those. Yeah. It takes none of the KHL, all of those teams, all of those the SHL, the Swedish guys are learning. If you watch them in the World Junior team this year, they're hitting a lot this year. That team is playing pretty tough this year, which, I mean, if you're going to play in the NHL, you're going to have to do that. But for the tough part of the game, I still take the Canadian. It's not the same. I've watched it. You're not fighting in the KHL. You're not. It's not. You can't. You're not taking the stick work. You're not. All of those sort of things like that. They're trying to make it more like that, but I still say junior is a way tougher league than the KHL as far as taking punishment. As far as taking punishment is concerned. being able to develop the punishment and pain threshold that you need to be in the NHL, I would rather a team develop in the OHL for that reason. Now, for skill level, I would say if you can play in the KHL, if you can get a point a game in the KHL, you're an awesome young player for sure. Not even that much. Yeah, they are switching on. Yeah, they're slowly switching to NHL size. They're finally starting to realize they're a development league, and what they're trying to do there is they're trying to make it so. And Kaprizov is really the biggest contributor, or the first one that they can point to say it's a success. Maybe not the first, the most successful guy they have to say you develop here before you go to the NHL. So develop here until you're 25, 24, 26, and then go to the NHL rather than coming over to the OHL and developing and stuff like that, which is putting the pressure on the NHL in Canada to really up their game when it comes to the type of talent they have, or they're not going to get those players over. So now what's happening is a guy from Russia, like Michkov, for instance, he's going to sign a contract till he's 25 years old, and a team might, he might drop in the standings because of it. But what the Russians say, don't worry, we'll pay you well here, because over here they got to sign in ELC anyways, and the Russian Federation, they'll just say, we can pay you pretty much that kind of money to play here in the KHL. Why go over there? And they're going to increase their development level. So there's no reason to come over here. You can develop there, and we'll develop you for an NHL team. And the KHL gets to have more competitive of a league with the NHL because they're keeping these great players longer. The only problem that could be is that the teams are now going to not draft them until later in the first round because, maybe your top end guys like Michkov might be able to get away with it. But if you've got a Russian guy who looks like he's going to be a middle round pick, teams are going to be like, well, I'm not going to get him till he's 25, so we won't draft him until the second round. And then when they come over, their immediate money that they're making is different. Now, the Russian league's going to be like, they'll pay you. They'll pay you. They'll pay you. If they want to go in the second round, that's fine, but you're not going to come over unless you're getting paid more than you are here anyways, right? So there was a smart move by the Russian Federation, by the KHL. From what I've seen, I'm not so sure Bedard should go first, honestly. I think I think Michkov and Bedard is a lot closer than you think. But there probably is no way they're going to take Michkov first because he's going to stay over until he's 25 years old or whatever. You're not going to be able to have him in your lineup. I mean, Bedard will probably make the NHL right out of junior and be well worth it. You're not hurting his development at all. And Michkov probably would be able to do that too. But if he's going to stay over there till he's 23, 24, 25, that's 4 years that you don't have a player that you could be using in your lineup as a second line center or number one center already. You're not going to take him number one. There's no way. So he's going to lose that ability to be chosen number one. Now, for a talent like Michkov, people, even if you don't get him till he's 25, he's so freaking good. Like he almost he's got like he almost looks like Malkin. His shot is insane. I honestly think his upside might be better than Bedard's, don't you? Like he looks like a guy. Yeah, Bedard is supposed to. Yeah, Bedard should be playing center. But I don't know if Michkov is a winger, so that makes it different too. He doesn't have he's not the. But man, is he one hell of a winger! Holy crap! Yeah, I don't know. I think he might have. We'll have to see, but I think he might even have more upside than Bedard. But first of all, he's a winger, and second of all, he's not going to be able to play for the. He's not going to be playing for the first couple of years. He's decided to develop in the KHL. So, all right, we should get into the other games here. Laurent, LA versus the Golden Knights, and the Golden Knights. DeBoer likes to play games, and it drives me crazy. He likes to play games. Nah, Shane Wright has not impressed me at all, no. And he hasn't had a great junior either. So you got LA Vegas, and they're not going to tell you if Stone or Pacioretty are into the last second, so I say screw them. It's just nonsense. You know if they're going to be in. Tell us if they're in. Ticking off fans is just not a good way to go through. Freaking all because you're trying to what? Play mind games with the opposition or something? Like I don't understand. Stone, game time decision. Pacioretty, game time decision. If Stone and Pacioretty are in, I'd probably go with Vegas here on the road. But LA has been playing very, very good. The lot like before the lot they were playing pretty well. They're playing a real simple game, like just shooting from everywhere, but hard in the corners. The thing is, they're without. They're also without Deno and Dustin Brown. And they just seem like they're not going to put Kaliev or Kupari on the top lines no matter what. It don't matter. They're not playing the top lines. That's it. Doughty will be in. And then Quick will be in net. And it looks like possibly Brossoit. Again, Lehner is like, they don't know. They don't know or not telling or something like that. Who do I take? I'm on the fence here. I think LA could win this. The way they've been playing as of late, it all depends. Like this is one of those ones where you got to watch it live first to see how they're playing. Oh, I loved McTavish as a pickup. I didn't know he was going to be this good this fast, but I loved McTavish. McTavish was like a Horvat. And I love Horvat. So Owen Power has dominated. Again, that's going to be interesting to see if Owen Power can do that with the bigger players in the NHL or what he'll be turn into there. But he's a pretty slick guy for a guy his size. Like He's got a beautiful skating stride for his size. Pretty impressive player. But I'm going to say Vegas. I'm going to say LA. I don't know. I get. Oh, that's what I was saying. I think you got to watch it live first. Vegas is such a fast team. LA does struggle with fast teams. And I don't believe they have, what's his name in net? What's his name? Do they have Athanasiou in? No. Athanasiou is hurt more than he's there. Man, he's injured all the time. No Walker. Alex Turcotte getting a shot as a second line center. I think you got to put Kapari there. Why are you playing Turcotte up there? I don't know why. It's a gut feeling. I think LA might win that game. Just a gut. And small. Their defense is small, too. They don't have a very big defense. They need help on the defensive side of there. They got a couple guys coming up through the minors that can help them out, and juniors. They need to do something with that defense before they're going to be able to really compete for sure. I agree. But I'm not taking LA if Stone and Pacioretty are in. And you're not going to find that till like a half an hour before game time. For sure. DeBoer's not going to tell you until half an hour before game time. So head over to bpalpicks.com and you can, I'll do the work for you and let you know if they're going to be in or not. And then Arizona, San Jose. San Jose, I wouldn't touch this game. San Jose's got a whole bunch of players out. Like, listen to this lineup that they're putting in. They got the better top end players tonight, but they don't really have all that much better of a lineup than Arizona all the way through. Barabanov, Couture, and Meyer. Barabanov's having an okay year, I suppose. And then Jaden Habelwax, a 24-year-old 5'8" forward who's only putting about 0.6 points a game up in the AHL with Bonino and Noah Gregor. Noah Gregor just can't seem to put the offensive part of his game up in the NHL. Then Cogliano, who is really on the downside of his career with Lane Peterson and Matt Nieto, neither of which have virtually any offensive ability whatsoever. Then Jeffrey Vial-Truchon, who I don't even think is, 4 points in 17 games is just a fourth line plugger. With Nick Merkley and Jonathan Gadovich. That is not a lineup that inspires me to pick them. Arizona doesn't have a great lineup either, but San Jose's might be defense. On defense, they probably got them. With Carlson, Brent Burns, Middleton, Ferrero, Vlasic, and Simic is back. And James Reimer in net. But I hope nobody's going -1.5 on San Jose here because I don't see it. I think it's almost a better idea to PL Arizona. Because I wouldn't go more than an ML or like I wouldn't. I don't know either, Lauren. I really would like to know that. I'm just some armchair GM, and I go to the draft every year, and I do my picks from what I've read from different general managers and, some junior games I've watched and all that stuff like that. And I'm just floored by some of the picks that like it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, how do you not know? They had to have watched the player way more than me. So I assume that I must not have watched the player play enough. So they must know more than me when they make their picks. But it turns out that I was right. And not just me, like lots of YouTubers out there. And you just wonder, like, how? How is that possible? How is that possible that you have devoted your life to a craft and don't see that? Like, I don't get it. How can I be right at all? Hardly ever. Let alone most of the time. I don't get it. Like, there's somewhere it's like, okay, it could go any other way. They're good at it. I know scouting. They're good at picks. I just think there's a lot of that guy Scouch or whatever. I can't remember his name, but because it's a combination of coaching and scouting, right? And it goes with his name as well. He uses a lot of analytics for his stuff. He's analytics minded. And I think, hi, how you doing, man? I think that most of the stuff is nepotism or something. I don't know. Like, he's a good example. The guy hits like crazy, like you say, on picks, and he's still sitting there every year out scouting the teams that are out there, and they don't even give him, like, they got to know who he is by now. I don't think, well, I hope you're right. But my team wouldn't be smart enough to fire Tippett and take him. I hope you're right. But I know my team would never pick him up. I think it's nepotism. Players that have, a lot of ex-players and stuff like that think they know about scouting. And, I think there are teams that don't do that. The Detroit Red Wings, obviously, Carolina, guys like that. They have a system that works. But, I mean, there is like Montreal Canadiens. Who the hell are these guys? I swear to God, that Timmins guy must have been part of like some human trafficking ring with the Molsons or something like that. How do you go 10 years without drafting a number one, drafting a single NHL player in the first round and still have a job? Are you freaking kidding me? And the players that they picked, you got guys like this Scouching dude, or I know other guys as well, and me, and I'm sitting there going, what? Why the heck are you picking? What are you doing? It's unbelievable. Well, seriously, I can't explain it any other way, man. Like, how does that guy keep his job for 10 freaking years? Anyways, hi Oilers Highlights. How you doing, buddy? Talk to me. Tell me what you want to talk about. We got about 25 minutes here. We've been doing a lot of stuff on scouting, and we're just talking about Vegas, LA, and I'm on the fence about that game, so I probably, I don't know. Vegas is tough because they got a really good system there. if they anticipate the way they can against LA is going to have a really difficult time. If LA moves a puck like I've seen them before they started seeing them, like the last 5 games before the break, they can beat almost any team. They're just not going to score a lot, unfortunately. And that's been the thing with McClellan always. Yeah, he'll make his NHL debut. He hasn't put him up many points in the AHL. They got him on the second line. I guess you got to put him in a place where he has a chance to succeed right away. But I'm not sure I like. I'm not sure he'll stay there for the whole game or whatever, but they're putting him on the second line. It should be interesting for sure. Ugh. I know a lot of people are all over Vegas tonight, but and if Pacioretty and Stone are in, I'm on them too. But yeah, I don't know, man. You got like there's a lot of teams out there that have just did poorly at drafting and developing, and it just seems that they keep the same guys over and over and over again. The Oilers. Maybe is it really? I never noticed that. Anyways, I'm trying to figure out something to do for a video, but it's really hard to do because most of the lineups on Cap Friendly aren't even put together. Like, I wish they would do the depth chart on Cap Friendly and forget about the COVID, who's out or who's in, or do like 2 separate or something. Oh, just shut up. Here's a question for you. What does Chicago do now? Oh my gosh. Okay, so Chicago. Who the heck is out? Taves. Oh, Kirby Doc. What do you do if you're Chicago this year? Well, I think Dadonov will be. I don't. That would be my first guess. Like if you look at Vegas's cap, it's hard to say too because they're putting so many guys on injured lists. That it's hard to say what their cap is right now. Because they got so many guys on IR, and that's creating cap. Current cap space. See, they got right now they've got 7 million in cap space. That's almost his salary. They only got to lose 4 million more. And you got to remember, when Eichel comes in, he's not going to be on $10 million. He's going to be on $4 million. because his cap will already have been paid by insurance. So they won't have to do all that much, actually. No, they don't need to clear 10 million. He's going to be back maybe half of that, 5 million. And right now they got 7 million in cap space. Because 5 million of his salary has been paid out already. So they won't have to do much. It's just like when you make a trade at the deadline, you don't make a trade and take on their full cap, because by the deadline, over half of their salary has been paid out. So the cap space is based on whatever you got to pay at that time. Whatever it is at that time, whatever hasn't been paid out. Same as it will be for Eichel when he comes in. Now, next year, to start the year, it's going to be a lot of fandangling they got to do. But as it stands right now, and it seems like Vegas' plan is to just basically, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. It seems like they consistently do that. So they're not worried about tomorrow too much in Vegas. Now, when the playoffs start, I believe, then they got a problem. Because when the playoffs start, it goes back to their original again. It goes back to their full. That was the problem with last year with Kucherov. Because before, it didn't matter about cap space in the playoffs. Now, when the playoffs start, everybody goes back to they're back to the beginning. So Eichel's worth 10 million. Eichel's 10 million on your cap. That's where their problem is going to be. How are they going to get it so they ice a team? And I believe the new rule is you can be over the cap, but you can't ice a team that's over the cap. So everybody that you play that night on your roster has to be under the cap. So, and my thinking is that they're going to solve that by, I don't think Dodonov's going to play in the playoffs. I don't think they have any plans on playing Dodonov in the playoffs. He's not a playoff type player. They got guys that can play a much more playoff style game. Maybe not give you the points that you need, but that you would like. But I don't think Dodonov's going to get many points in the playoffs anyways, because his game is so perimeter. He's just going to get his butt kicked out there. He'll be dead halfway through the game. So that'll be one guy that probably won't be in the lineup when the playoffs start. And then at the deadline, they may have to, maybe they trade a guy like Dodonov. And then, I don't know who else they would trade. So they're compliant when the playoffs start. Or they can ice a team that's compliant. So they're going to pick the guys. They're going to have to pick the guys that they want to ice during the playoffs. I would say they would keep Dodonov for injuries. So if like Riley Smith gets injured, then they can put Dodonov in. But that would be my guess. Yeah, they don't need to clear 10 million at the time that he comes back. They only need to clear as much as he's paid out for. I believe that. I'm positive that's the way it is. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Because that's why they say that they always wait until the deadline when you have more cap room. I'd have to go through that. I want to make sure that what I'm saying is absolutely correct. Because now I'm starting to wonder, because if that's the case, then you should have a crap load of cap space at the deadline. But I do believe that it goes, like the cap goes down at the same time. Like you have it's 80 million. It's an 80 million cap at the beginning of the season, and as you pay it off, it goes down to a 40 million and all that kind of stuff like that. Something like that. It's really complicated. That's why general managers have a terrible time with it. Well, I don't think Dodonov is all that important. Dodonov was, I kind of get why they picked up Dodonov now. He was a regular season pick. It looked to me like they thought they were getting Eichel all the way. Because I wondered why they picked up Dodonov. Because he was terrible. He's a terrible playoff player. And he's not that great in the regular season. Like, he'll give you some points. But it's not really a depth piece for the playoffs. He's basically useless. In the playoffs, there's no use even having him. He's a poor man's Eberle. And, I mean, Eberle is okay in the playoffs. He's pretty, like, he can find his way. He's got the speed. And, he gets in the spots sometimes. Dodonov never gets into those spots. He's always scoring from either a breakaway because he's cherry picking, or he's or a perimeter shot. He's got a good shot. He's got skills, but when it comes to the playoffs, he's pretty much invisible. They need to get rid of all the Flyers coaching staff and start over. And the GM again. How many times are you going to do that in Philadelphia? How many times are you going to do that in Philadelphia? I don't even know. Who would you have as a general manager now? I would have loved Gorton, but from what I've seen from Chuck Fletcher right now, I don't know if I want him hiring my coach. Really? They are in a bad spot. Philadelphia, they're just digging the hole deeper and deeper all the time in Philadelphia. They're just digging that hole deeper and deeper all the time. When they got Ellis, I was happy because analytically he was great. And analytically, he was great. But I was talking to Nashville guys, and they said that he was just going downhill after his injury. And it looks like they were right, because he's just injured all the time now. I agree. They totally need to do what Hextall wanted to do. Get rid of Giroux. You might as well get rid of Ellis now if he can come back and play up until the deadline. God, I hope so. Trade everybody. Yeah. Build around Carter Hart. That team has been just refusing to do a proper rebuild. That's the thing. I don't think they'll ever do. Well, Lauren, they're going to end up doing it the hard way. And they're going to suck for 20 years. That's the problem. They're going to suck for 20 years. And then finally, even though they're not trying to rebuild, they're going to be rebuilding. Because they're going to be getting top 10 picks every year. Because they suck. Like, yeah, it's unbelievable. Well, they had to. Yeah. They just have to. They got to bite the bullet. It's too bad. Are they going to be pissed off? Absolutely. Philly fans would lose their minds if they did a rebuild. That is a fan base that has no patience whatsoever. None whatsoever. And probably the reason why they're not doing it is because their sponsors are saying, if you're going to rebuild, we're going to pull the sponsor. I would imagine. I think they, yeah. I don't think the coach is the problem, is the way that defense is built. But they got crap defense in Edmonton. So Holland, I would have loved for them to wait for Gorton. That would have been awesome. I would have loved wait for Gorton to come instead of hiring Holland, and then let him. I mean, he would have the pick of whoever he wanted to as a coach, and I don't know who that would have been, but I mean, they did hire a young college coach before. It didn't work out, so. I don't know who they would pick. There's probably a lot of great coaches out there. Look at how Turney's doing in Arizona. You know, it's only 32 spots and a lot of people vying for those spots. I'm sure there's still some brilliant coaches out there looking for a chance, or have been doing it for a long time and deserve a chance. I don't know who they would be, because I don't have time to follow all the leagues as much as I would like, but I would have loved to see them get Gorton. Gorton did a good job at that rebuild with the Rangers. I like the way he built that team. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, well, he's done piss poor. I'm sorry, but I mean, you try to Oilers fans arguing about how Duncan Keith is better than Bear. That Tyson Barrie's offense makes up for his defense. That Darnell Nurse is good defensively. Like, try to have a discussion with these people. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, I'm not having an argument here. There is no argument. Everything I said is absolutely true. And if you don't see it when you're watching that, I don't know what to say. I know, Lauren, you watch the Oilers, you know, right? You watch it and you go, that's a shitty defense right there. Simple as that, right? Like, it's a bad defense. What is he saying now, Tortorella? What's Tortorella said something else? Yeah, I think Tortorella's decided he doesn't want to coach anymore. Actually, no, that's not true. Tortorella would say whatever he's going to say. He doesn't. He's not going to pull any. What? Send me the quote you just talked about Tortorella. About the NHL announcers should not be like that. Okay, let me Tortorella NHL announcers. Oh, you think he shouldn't say what? Tortorella says it like he thinks it is. You can say whatever you want about. I'm not saying he says it like it is, but he says it like he thinks it is. If he believes something to be true, he's going to say it, and that's it. And you know, he's going to say what he thinks what he thinks it is. Like I said, there's been a lot of people that said he was the best thing for his career, and others that said no otherwise. But the NHL shouldn't have fired him. Why? How did the NHL fire him? Shouldn't have fired who? Him? How did the NHL fire him? Are you talking about his Kekalainen, you mean? The only thing I just heard about was him talking about the last I heard about what Tortorella said was about the the kids Milano and Zegras, that and him saying that he didn't think it was good for the league, which is probably the most ridiculous thing I've heard him say stuff, and I'm like, okay, whatever, like maybe I don't agree, but that was the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. He said Larson was going to be the best coach in the league. The guy who took over for him in Columbus, he said he thinks Larson's going to be one of the best coaches in the league. Are you saying that he talked about John Tortorella is digging himself a hole with all the ridiculous comments about the NHL announcers? So he said something about the NHL announcers? Oh, about the NHL, period. Announcers should not be like that. Okay. Basically, what Tortorella is doing is trying to become the new Don Cherry. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to become the American version of Don Cherry. He might even be being told to do that. And I think he genuinely thinks a lot of the stuff he said. I think he's becoming the American version of Don Cherry. And I wouldn't even doubt if he's kind of been told to go with that. I wouldn't doubt it. But that's my full 42, guys. I got to go pick up the little lady now. It's minus ridiculous here. It's probably about, if Fahrenheit, I would say minus 12, minus 15 Fahrenheit, something like that. I don't know. Let's see what. No, sorry, not that. Not that cold. Yeah, feels like minus 34. Yeah, see you later, guys. Awesome. Thanks for joining, especially around the holiday break. You guys have time to come in and chat. That's awesome. It was great talking to you guys again. I missed it. We'll talk tomorrow and we'll talk about games. That'll be fun. Have a good one, everybody. Lots of love to you. Okay, bye.